Hello, thank y'all for coming. I'm just going to do a quick presentation. I'll give you a little speech about an ambulance driver. My name is Brandon Questenberry, and I've been a paramedic for like 5 years. I wrote this little thing, and I'd just like for y'all to just give me a few minutes of your time and listen. Thank you very much. Have you ever wondered why an ambulance was speeding down the road with lights and sirens flashing just to see a few minutes later them driving back down the road normally? Seems a little weird, doesn't it? So maybe I can give you a little insight on that. So as I said, my name is Brandon Questenberry, and I've been a full-time employee on an ambulance for the last 5 years, and then 2 of those I've been a paramedic working here locally. So I have many different experiences thus far, and it's taken me a long time to become a paramedic. So, there's one saying that I've had let me rephrase. There's a lot of people that have said this one thing to me a bunch of times, and it's just aggravated me. And it's like, usually it goes like this: hey, you're one of those ambulance drivers. So that's like a little saying that I hear all the time that I want to speak to you about. So, I just want to say that it's been a long journey and countless hours becoming a paramedic, and which is not well known. They just think that we're ambulance drivers, so I'd like to shed some light on that. To begin the journey, we start with an EMT class, which is just an emergency medical technician. So what that is you just take a class and you become what we just call an EMTB, or emergency medical technician. There's a bunch of different levels, so we have that, and before you can take the class, there's some prerequisites, just like everything we have now. You have to do CPR, and then most places require you to have a EVOC, which is just a class where you learn how to operate an emergency vehicle. So with that, you have an EMT class, which is about 140 hours total. So that's classroom time, and then you have to have an internship, or clinicals as we call them. So that takes about, depending on what program you take, about 48 to 60 hours of that. And then you have to take a state test that is run by the state. So that takes a whole weekend. You have to take the test one day, and then the next day is like 8 hours or so of complete. There's little stations. You come into the room, there's like 8 stations. You have to do each one, and you have to be proficient in them. So, and then once you do that, after you invested about 250 hours of your time, you become an EMT. So that is the minimum level that you have to do before you can become, as y'all would call it, an ambulance driver. So it's a little bit more than just, starting up the truck, jump in, flip some switches, turn the siren on, and drive. It's a lot more technical than just driving an ambulance. So, all right. So then let's talk about what it entails to be a paramedic. So a paramedic is, on top of your EMT class, that is the major prerequisite before you can become a paramedic. So you take your 240, 60 hours dependent, and then that is the minimum requirement before you are accepted into a paramedic program. Paramedic program is it's 1,150 hours of instructional time. So you have to sit in the classroom for pretty much 1,200 hours. That is pretty much the standard. And then you have about 480 hours of internship that you have to do before you're allowed to test as a paramedic. So I know that's a bunch of numbers, kind of boring. So let's just say it's about 1,800 hours, or 1,600 to 1,800 hours, depending on your program, how much time you have to invest before you can become a paramedic. And then with that, you have to take these other classes before you're allowed to take your state test, which is an ACLS class. You have to keep up your CPR, so throughout your 2 years you have to retake your 16-hour CPR class once. You have to repeat your EVOC class, and you have to take a PALS class, which is another weekend class. All these adjunct classes that you take, they help you prepare for your state test, and they're all on the weekend because that's the only time anybody hosts them, and they're all 16 hours a piece. So after you get it's all said and done, you out of your 2 years, you spend like 6 weekends on weekend classes plus going to school during the week, 3 to 4 nights a week for 4 to 6 hours depending. So back to ambulance driver. So when I hear you're one of those ambulance drivers, after investing all that time, burning all my weekends, putting in class, doing all the free internships where I go and help at the hospital or on the ambulance or wherever, all those hours invested, and then they say, hey, you're one of those ambulance drivers. So I hope I shed a little bit of light on that. That's not really the case. After about 2,000 hours of education, school and practicals and internships and a couple state tests later, you can become a paramedic. And then you can have people say, hey, you're one of those ambulance drivers. So next time you see a paramedic, they usually have a little badge that says paramedic or a little gold thing on their shoulder. So just say, when you see them, just realize that they spend a lot of time and a lot of money and sacrifice to do that. So just thank them. And I hope you enjoyed this and it shed a little light. See ya.